it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today we are going to be going for a bit of a monochromatic look. Now this one is sort of a classic style and can be completed with a couple of easy items, really two main easy items for this one. But today we are going to be using a couple of items from the Simon Says Stamp Happy Camper release. This embossing folder is called the Mid-Century Ethereal embossing folder. And then this beautiful background stamp here, this is called Beautiful Blossoms. It does have as a double bonus all of the sentiments down the bottom, which is going to be super helpful also in keeping us using less ingredients for our beautiful project today. It just makes life easier. I'm going to use those sentiments because they're there and it gives us a nice little range to choose from. Now this embossing folder is one of those handy, just like good for any occasion, background, texture. It's absolutely stunning. This is the kind of design that I look for when I look for something to join my stash. This is just universal, it's versatile, it's all the good things, and I can think of some really fun ways that we could color this in, but that's going to be for another day because today we're going to keep this very sort of black and white and play around with that a little bit. So this beautiful background stamp here is stunning. I decided that instead of coloring in and getting really colorful today, we are going to be stamping this out onto some black cardstock. Now I'm going to use the black Licorice cardstock from Fawn today just to make this a little bit easier because this is a big background stamp. I think it feels like around 6 by 6 inches. I'm going to pop this in my stamping platform just to make it easier. I have a piece of card here ready to go. It doesn't necessarily matter the size of the cardstock that we're stamping onto because I am going to be cutting into this one today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be cutting up the stamp, so that is one good thing. Because I am using embossing powder, I'm going to use an anti-static powder tool. There are lots of different companies that make these and they are a great tool when it comes to making sure you get crisp results. Now, usually that is one aspect of embossing, but I would say that when you are embossing with white embossing powder onto black cardstock, that is one of the times when I definitely want there to be the most crisp, clean lines, and I do not want that escapee embossing powder. I want this to be nice and clean, so I definitely make sure to put a good amount of the anti-static powder on top of this, and this is going to help us get some really successful results when it comes to the heat embossing. Now this is beautiful. I don't know, this design is absolutely stunning. It's got a couple of those more bold centers on the flowers, which I love. This for coloring, like from here, you could use Perfect Pearls for some coloring. You could use some oxides. They're going to show up on the black. There are lots of Simon Hurley, the solar pastes and things like that are going to work well on the black or the darker cardstocks. There are also some inks out there that will work really well. But as I said today, I'm going to keep this very we're using this beautiful background, but sadly that does mean I am going to cut into this. And as you can see, there are lots of foliage and lots of floral elements here. I am choosing one of the flowers that is very whole. You can see the whole part of the image, meaning that most of the petals are there and not tucked behind other images. So I love that they've included one in here because this means we can use this as a focal point or a standalone image as well, even though this is a beautiful background stamp as well. So I like a good bit of versatile product use there. And then I'm also going to snip out some of the individual leaves. I just wasn't sure at this point if this was something I was going to end up using, but I figure while I'm there fussy cutting, I may as well give it a go. And then this is where I'm going to chop up the textured background. Now this is going to make the majority of the background, but I was having a wee look at the sentiments there, thinking out which one I wanted to choose, thinking about how much space I needed. And obviously for stamping, it's not ideal to be stamping on that textured background. So this is where I decided to create a slice down the bottom that was going to be non-textured, so just plain white cardstock. So I've got my pieces cut out here, but this is where I decide I actually want to cut off about an inch and a quarter, is going to be a good amount of space for the sentiment down the bottom. But other than that, these are going to layer up nicely. So I cut off the textured piece, and then that means I want to cut the exact same, whatever you did the first time around. So whether that be 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch or 1 1/4 inches, I want to cut this into plain cardstock, and this is going to match up to the bottom of our textured white cardstock that we have as well. So just cutting this to be exactly the same width. The white piece, the textured white piece, I had cut this down to be 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and then I just made a matting layer which was just ever so slightly, just a fraction bigger, so that it became the layer, because this will be going onto a white card. So we do have to work, because we're just using the black and white colors, we do have to work a little bit harder to make sure that A, there is visual interest going on in the card, and then B, that we can separate some of those layers. So this is where I have my sentiment ready to go. And you may have just seen that I did end up cutting my stamp, because this was stacked on top of each other, but I want this to go along the bottom there. And so I did cut it. It's okay, because even when you cut the stamps apart, I always make sure to do one clean cut. And that means that when I put these back together, they sort of fit like a puzzle piece. They're going to fit exactly as they were originally intended. But when I cut them, it just makes them more versatile for me, and I can make this into a longer, thinner sentiment rather than a stacked one. So you can see how my layers all fit nicely there. I do have a join at the moment, and I also have the scraps that I cut out from earlier. And so this is the perfect place where you could put in some ribbon. You could put some like burlap twine. You could, lots of different things, but actually I really like that, background element that we've got there. And I think this all ties it in nicely. And so instead of having to go through a ribbon drawer or trying to find something that's going to match nicely, this will do the trick, I think, and this is going to separate those two layers, and it also just creates a bit more visual interest in the card. It does just add a little bit more of that same pattern as well from the flowers. So the flower is not the only textured embossing on the page. I always want to try and incorporate the elements that we've used into another space on the card, and so I've achieved that one nicely. And then I've got my flower that I have fussy cut out here. I've got those leaves that I have too. I'm trying to decide if I like it a little bit further up or if I like it down touching that ribbon that we've popped across, which is actually just the cardstock. But I go for almost free from that, and this card has texture. It has those striking two black and white contrast, which I really love. I tried the leaves, but I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, I could have added them, but I was happy enough as is. And then from here, we're just going to add in a few more details. Now, these are completely optional. If you wanted to, you could add a little bit of like Wink of Stella or something shiny or something to like glossy accents to catch your eye, something like that. I'm just going to add in a few extra little white dots with a white gel pen just for visual interest. But this is a beautiful, easy card to create with two main ingredients, so I hope that you give this one a go. Of course, supplies will be listed below. Other than that, I shall see you in the next one. Bye!